Hi there, I'm Kristin Jackson. I'm a clinical somatic educator in training in Portland, Oregon. I have a website called Somatics.com, and you can find out more information about what somatics is all about and how it can help you function better, give you more freedom of ease to move in your torso and get out of pain. But I'm just starting off with some basic videos on the self-care routine that Thomas Hanna called the cat stretch. And I actually call it the daily supplement, because if you do it every day, you'll remain supple and be able to function well and feel great in your body. So the very first move you start with is what's called the Soma Scan. And Soma is the first person experience of yourself. So everyone has a body, and that's what we see when we look at each other or we look in the mirror, but the Soma is your first person's experience of yourself. So what you feel like internally and create somatic awareness. So you start with a Soma Scan. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you. Okay, so here I am. I'm lying on the floor. I'm just going to lie on a nice flat surface. I can have yoga mats under me if I prefer, or you can do this on carpet. Ideally, it's better to do it on something that's a little bit firmer so you'll get some feedback. If you do it on a squishy bed, it's not going to feel quite the same. I'm lying down. I've got my arms just relaxed at my sides. And I'm going to talk you through this, but as you're doing this on your own, just tune in and see what you sense. And sometimes people don't sense a whole lot until they start doing some of the actual exercises, but this is where we start, so we know what to compare to as we move our bodies and try to release our muscles. Okay, so if I'm lying here on the floor and relaxed, I can start anywhere I want with my body, but I'm going to start today with my pelvis. Okay, so I'm lying on the floor and bringing awareness to whether I feel like my pelvis is level, meaning level across. You know, what does that feel like? Does my pelvis feel more weighted? You know, if I'm weighting it down into the floor, or do I feel like maybe one hip, the top of my pelvis, does it hike towards a hip? Towards an armpit. Or does one leg feel like it's reaching further down the floor? So that's something for you to tune in on, is just sense what your pelvis is doing. Do you feel more weight in one side or the other? What does your low back feel like? Does your low back feel like it's elevating off the floor a whole bunch? Or does it feel closer to the floor? Or do you feel tightness on one side of your back that kind of pulls your hip up towards your rib cage on one side, or the opposite side? Maybe you feel perfectly symmetrical, or maybe you can't tell. That's okay. Just, if you haven't ever done this, you might not know really what you feel. So if we sense our backs, then also up to our shoulder blades, our rib cage. We're using the floor as kind of a little tactile mirror. And so if you lie here, if you sense that maybe your shoulders are rounding up towards the ceiling, or do they feel like they evenly rest on the floor? Does one feel like it's going up towards an ear, or do you feel tightness in maybe one armpit pulling the shoulder down? And it's not that you need to correct yourself, or maybe your muscles will start to relax as you lie here and you do adjust a little bit. Things start to give a little bit. Then you can tune in to what your neck feels like. Does it feel really arched off the floor, so your chin is kind of going up towards the ceiling and you feel tightness in the back of your neck? Now, this is quite often what people do when they sit at a computer. Their chin juts forward towards the computer, and then when they lie down on the floor, they can't get their neck to relax. And that's something to tune into. Or do you feel like maybe your chin's dropping more towards your chest? You feel more flattening in the back of the neck. It's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just an awareness. And then you can also roll your head just gently side to side, seeing what your shoulders feel like, and what does your neck feel like, what does your head feel like. Does it feel evenly loose on both sides of your neck, or do you find tightness rolling towards a side or away from a side? Are there limitations, or does it feel pretty free and easy? Does your head roll like a barrel right across the back of your skull? Or are you doing more of what I call more of an arc, where you're rolling and bringing a chin down towards your shoulder? So So your head doesn't really roll side to side, it kind of nods side to side. What do your arms feel like? Are they resting palms down? And what does that feel like for your chest and your shoulders? Are they resting palms up? Do they rest closer to your ears? Or do they feel like they're kind of sliding down your back into your back pockets and making your back arch more? Your shoulders can affect your whole back. And just moving down the arms, do your elbows open wide and open out and lengthen, or do you feel a little tightness and you have to bend your arms into this position? Or if you're bending them, do they face down? Do you feel like your fingers and your arms and your wrists are relaxed, or are they gripping? Does one do one more than the other? Maybe you have a wrist that rolls in and one that rolls out. Just bringing awareness to it all. Now, if we move further down the body, what are you work from your pelvis now, if you can go to feeling what the backs of your hamstrings feel like. Do they rest on the floor? Or do they feel like they're way off the floor? One's down into the floor or off? And your hamstrings then lead down into the backs of your knees. Some people have a hard time straightening their legs. So maybe your knees are really elevated, which along with your hamstrings, or maybe they're more resting on the floor. And then down to your calves. What do your calves feel like? Do they rest comfortably on the floor? Do you feel like it's right on the backs of your calves? Maybe you roll inward. Is it on the inside of your calves, or do you roll outward on the sides of your calves? And if one leg is doing maybe a little bit more roll in one direction or the other, you can sense that maybe. Moving down into your ankles, how do they feel? Do your ankles rest comfortably on the floor on the outside edge or right on the backs of your heels? Do your feet feel like they're really rigid and pointing up towards the ceiling? Or do they flop and open outward? Roll in? Do they roll in one direction and then the other? Just bringing some awareness to how you are touching the floor. Because your muscles are holding you in this position, so you need to know what's going on so that you can sense how you change as you start to release your muscles when you do the somatic exercises. So if you were just lying on that perfectly flat beach and you just levitated up off the surface, what would your imprint look like? Would it be weighted more on one side or the other? Or maybe into one hip and then the opposite shoulder? Just see if you can sense what's going on at this moment and see how you feel. So I led that a little more quickly than I might in a class, but just for you to get an idea, and just lie here, you can turn off the recording and take a scan. For some people, this might be really uncomfortable after a while if they have really tight backs, so you can slide your feet up and take a break if you need, and you can do a scan even with right here. Okay? So that's a Soma Scan, and thanks for tuning in. There'll be more coming down the pike. Bye-bye.